Alrighty, think we're live. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech live on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for any potential confusion there. I was intending to go live right on noon, but for some reason my brain put in 1 p.m. So yeah, that was the correct time. Video will be dropping after this stream. But I wanted to talk a bit about a discussion we were having in the Discord a few weeks back, and I've still seen some speculation go back and forth on, and I do have a poll ready to go, so I can get your guys' opinions on the subject. But basically, because the M1 chip was mainly based on the same architecture of the A14 chip that came out last year, there's actually a lot of people speculating that the next series of M series of chips, basically, hopefully, the most powerful Apple Silicon ever, which would ideally be unveiled this month, maybe just in the next few weeks, because this is going to be based more so on the A15 chip instead of the A14, that Apple would not go with the obvious branding approach. The obvious one, of course, being M1X, which is what everyone describing the next generation MacBooks is saying. That's what's in the thumbnail of this stream. M1X sounds like the most natural evolution, that's the word I was looking for, because you had M1, following year, you get a chip that's faster, M1X. But the precise reason I think there's people speculating that maybe M1X isn't the right way to go is because this is built on more updated architecture, that it's basically going to be using similar high-performance cores that we see in the A15 chip, and later down the road, there's supposed to be, at some time next year in 2022, new Apple Silicon that's better than the M1, but is still emphasizing battery life over performance. So it's not supposed to be, 8 high-performance cores and 2 efficiency cores. Likely, still Apple is working on another chip that fits like the MacBook Air and fits the entry-level Mac Mini better than that of a M1X, for example, that would be suiting for $1,800 MacBooks, like the 14-inch MacBook Pro or the 17-inch MacBook Pro, whatever it ends up being. Those higher-end, like $2,000 laptops are going to need a bit more performance-driven silicon, whereas Apple next year is working on silicon better for efficiency. And what do you call that if you've unveiled the M1X, and that's what everybody's running with, but then the following year you hear about M2? And if M2 sounds newer and sounds like a higher number than M1X, are people out there going to assume that M2 chip is better than M1X, even though it's emphasizing efficiency and it's not so crazy when it comes to performance? For that reason, there's actually a lot of people speculating that the silicon that will be in this upcoming MacBook Pro we're hearing about will actually be M2X instead of M1X. That way, people understand that this is not just a follow-up or a slightly updated version of the M1 chip. It's actually a next generation of Apple Silicon that's built on a totally new architecture, the same architecture of the A15. And because of that, there's people saying M2X will make more sense. That way, next year, when we get M2 for the MacBook Air and the Mac Mini, people will understand that, okay, M2X is still better, still faster, more advanced than M2. And another example of Apple doing this in the past is, they've had X series of chips for iPads, especially higher-end iPad Pros. So we had an A10X chip, right? But then we never got an A11X chip, because the iPad Pros held on to the A10X until a few years had gone by. There was a new architecture, the A12, and they wanted to up that and go further. So a lot of people were thinking, okay, maybe we'll get A11X, but no, we got A10X and then next generation A12X. And I believe there was a A8X, but not an A9X. So in that regard, basically the X series of chips kind of skip a generation in between, which is why there's a decent number of people expecting an M2X instead of M1X because of the different fundamental architectures. That seems logical, but also a bit confusing. I think no matter what they do, it's a bit confusing, to be honest with you, because if they do the obvious, which is M1X, that's going to result in a new lower-powered chip that's more emphasizing battery life next year called M2. And the average consumer is going to be like, wait, is M1X faster or M2 faster? Why does the MacBook Air get the M2, but the MacBook Pro that costs more get the M1X? And then people have to agree on, well, okay, M1X is still technically faster even though the number is lower. Apple will number things and name things so that the number, like in marketing 101, the higher the number, usually the better. That's why, they wanted to go iPhone 11, 12, 13 instead of 12S. We had A12Z that one time, which was just a slightly less binned version of the A12X. I don't know if that's an exception or the rule. Shaggy Review says M1 is A14X. M1 is M1. I don't go with the. It basically is this, right? It's like, no, it's got a name, so I'm gonna call it what it is. A14X doesn't exist. It's just a long, complicated name for a chip that never happened. I'm late, so is there a rumored 27-inch iMac? Well, a heavily reliable leaker Tim Cook did say at Quadruple U DC last year that all of the Macs would transition to Apple Silicon. So I think that's evidence that, yeah, the larger size iMac will eventually get a redesigned treatment, just like the 24-inch iMac did. I'm not exactly sure if they're going to go for the exact same design, just bigger. That seems the most likely or obvious scenario, that Apple would give all of the same design upgrades that the 21.5-inch iMac got with the 24-inch model, just do all of that again with a bigger model. But I don't know. I also have seen some people speculate that a more pro-oriented machine with more power that costs more won't go for the same design aesthetic as the 24-inch model, because the 24-inch iMac is going for everyday people, average consumers. It's trying to blend in with the home environment very well. That's why it has the light pastel colors and the white bezels. I'm personally not a fan of that design, and I think that you can have, no chin and black bezels and still have a very approachable, very iconic, very consumer-friendly design. And I'm wondering if Apple saw a lot of the backlash of the white bezels and the chin, and lots of YouTubers were reviewing it. Maybe my mouth is still messed up. I did go to the dentist a couple days ago, but I can't talk today. Anyway, lots of YouTubers reviewing it were like, I don't care for this design approach. Or I kept hearing people say, I don't mind the chin, but I don't care for the white bezels. Or people saying, I don't mind the white bezels, but I don't care for the chin. So it was kind of a mixed reaction. We got a lot of people that loved it, a lot of people that hated it. And I'm not sure if Apple was really going for that. I don't know if they wanted a controversial design or if they were hoping this would be more universally accepted. But there's some people out there that I guess think that just pros should get a more stealthy black, no chin design with the black bezels, and the average consumer's design would be more light colored and more happy looking, I guess is the terminology. What's Tim Cook's rumor accuracy rating? 100% so far. But yeah, I'll get the poll going just so we can get a vote. There's some Jose saying it'll be called M2X. I don't see how Apple would release M2X without releasing M2 first. I don't know if it's that crazy. I mean, they would be introducing a new generation, and they could be adding X to it by saying, this has never been done before. So we're using new cores and new design approach and a different architecture for the silicon. And because it's unleashed, it's X. So that would make the obvious approach next to be M2. Or it's also possible, this is another idea I've had floating around in my head, and part of the reason I wanted this to be a live stream instead of a video is because there's a lot of different ways to interpret it. Maybe we got something wrong in the leaks. Maybe we got something wrong in the rumors, and maybe Apple has something secretive that we don't know about yet. Perhaps Apple wants to unveil the M2 and the M2X this month. Maybe they've got a spec boost ready for the MacBook Air and the Mac Mini. With iPhones, they introduce a new silicon every single generation, A13, A14, A15. So every 12 months, basically, they found a way to improve the performance of their iPhone chips. Is it that crazy to assume maybe they could do a similar thing with the Macs? Perhaps there is an M2 MacBook Air refresh that's ready, or perhaps there is a Mac Mini with an M2 chip prepared, and what we thought was going to be the M1X Mac Mini actually ends up being the M2 Mac Mini, and then the M2X is reserved for the MacBook Pros because those are going to cost closer to $2,000, whereas the Mac Mini is a lot more affordable. People are saying, why M2X? Doesn't make any sense. It'll come after M2. Well, I'm saying it's the same logic for why was there no A11X? Why was there no A13X? Why did we just go A10X to A12X and A8X? There was no A9X. Basically, it's a different architecture. And because this next generation chip for the MacBook Pros is based off of the A15 instead of the A14, Apple might consider upping the processor generation, because long term it might be a bit confusing if you have M1X and then next year you have M2. People think that's a faster chip, even if it's not, even if it's mainly a more efficient chip than the M1, but it's not as fast as the M1X. So no matter what they do, I think it'll be confusing. I don't think there's an easy way to roll all this out, but M2X doesn't make completely no sense to me. But I could see it going either way, basically. Hopefully they have an October event and a new iMac is announced. According to 9to5Mac, they heard reports that a new iMac is of course, being worked on. I don't think it's speculation at this point that there's an Apple Silicon version of a larger size iMac being prepped, because Tim Cook told us that they're going to transition the whole lineup. So clearly that Intel iMac that's still on the site is on the way out. It's got to go at some point. It's just a matter of when. But 9to5Mac was suggesting that it had been postponed and it was not coming this year, and it should be expected maybe in the spring of next year. So every year, 2 new chips. Not necessarily, because so far, there's not a ton. I mean, I just threw out the idea of there being a lower powered chip, but it's possible that if I'm wrong, they could just do M1X or M2X this year and then M2 next year, and then they kind of leapfrog each other. So you have your entry-level chip one year, and then you have the X series the following year, and then back and forth. So perhaps we get whatever the name is, M1X this year, and then next year we get M2, and then in 2023 we get M2X, and they wait every 24 months to refresh the silicon on the Pros, possibly. I'm very curious. We have a little amount of track record of Apple's history with the M1 chip to go off of here. So as much as people are all running with M1X because that's just what we've heard from titles and thumbnails, and that's what everyone is assuming thus far, I'm just trying to say that because it's a different architecture and because the chip in these MacBooks is going to be based more so off of the A15 than the A14, it's not crazy to me. I'm not saying it's confirmed or it definitely has to be this way, but it's not impossible to me that the branding might be a bit different than what we expect. Don't know where the M1X name came from. Apple stopped using the X name in their products. Why would they use an acronym that is already outdated? Well, that's another... yeah. I mean... They did use X's for quite some time. You know, they had the A8X chip. Man, say that 10 times fast. Then they had the A10X, A12X. And you're right, there would have been an A14X had that trend continued, but they opted for M1 in the new iPad Pros. So the X series has kind of been abandoned at this point. I guess no Apple product as of now has X in the silicon, because they don't sell any of the old iPad Pros anymore. So if you buy a new iPad Pro, it has M1. And then the iPad Air has A14, iPad Mini has A15, the budget iPad has A13, the iPhones has A15, 14, and 13. So yeah, that's an interesting point I think a lot of people are also forgetting about as well. We're all assuming M1X because that's what they've done in the past. The original 2015 iPad Pro had an A9X chip. Sorry, I'm getting the naming backwards, but there was definitely a trend of not giving an X series of chip to every silicon. There was no A11X and there was no A13X. There was an M1X hashtag at the event. I wouldn't really consider that a confirmation. To me, that's more just the marketing team trying to hype up based on common hashtags. I don't know why. The event where we saw the hashtag M1X, there was no new Macs. So I don't think they would tell the marketing guy who sets up the live stream on YouTube to put in the name of a silicon chip that wasn't going to be announced for another like 4 months. That doesn't make sense because there was clearly no hardware at that event. So M1 in the iPad makes no sense. Doesn't the M stand for Mac? I don't think they necessarily said that when they unveiled the M1 chip. I think a lot of people ran with that and assumed M stood for Mac, but I don't think they explicitly stated M series stands for Mac. But if that is the case, that it does intentionally stand for Mac, it would have made a ton of sense, in my opinion, to allow the iPad to have dual booting. Say, okay, the iPad has all this great hardware, all this great software, even so good that we're able to pump Mac OS on here if you want. I'm not saying it has to be the default option, just for people who really, really want it, have a dual booting method, just like Apple allowed first-party support of Boot Camp on the Mac, and you could run Windows natively off of your Mac. Despite Apple not designing Windows or owning Windows in any form, they were totally fine with you running a completely different OS, not designed by them, on their own hardware. So wasn't that crazy of me, in my opinion, to assume that Apple would allow you to dual boot their own software on their own hardware? Like, is that too much to ask? I don't know. Doesn't the Apple TV have an X chip? No, Apple TV has an A12. It is not an A12X, unfortunately. That would have been cooler, because that's a much faster chip. I actually edited one of my tech videos off of my iPad Pro with an A12X chip, and it did very well. That chip is still pretty dang quick. I bet you could totally make a MacBook Air with an A12X chip, and I think it would be fine. It would just be a little bit slower than the M1, maybe a little bit worse battery life, but overall, A12X is still great. 3 A15s. M1 on the iPad probably because of chip shortage at the time. Hey, Rockford Media, thank you for the super chat. Loving my 13 mini, even though I'm coming from my 12 Pro Max. Awesome. Glad you love the mini. I want more people to buy the mini because I don't want Apple to get rid of it. Let's see, 3A15s. I don't think it has to do with the chip shortage because what's likely the case that I agree with other people on is that the silicon that was going to be developed for the next generation iPad Pro, the next inevitable step after developing A12X/A12Z was, if the naming would have continued, they would have branded it A14X, but maybe Apple realized pretty intelligently that this is a new generation because they had felt that the silicon that they were designing for their iPad Pros had gotten so good that they were ready to bring it to the Mac. So the Mac probably would have gotten, if the marketing team didn't do as good a job, it would have gotten the A14X, which would inevitably have gone into the iPad Pro anyway. I think that had they have designed a A14X, it probably would have been very similar to the M1. But the truth is that the Silicon team was doing such a good job that they were like, okay, now it's time to start bringing this to Macs. And because it's the first time we're going to be designing our own architecture and ditching away from Intel, let's simplify this further. Let's make it easier. Let's make it simpler. And let's go with M1 because this is a reboot for the Macs, essentially. But then they realized that there was really no point in giving the iPad Pro a different branded chip if it was going to get the same chip anyway in the first place. So Apple's been, for the most part, mostly unaffected by the chip shortage. iPhone silicon still being able to ramp pretty well and pretty far in advance before launching the new iPhones. They're able to ramp production fairly well, but the demand is still insanely high. So I don't think it was necessarily the chip shortage, like Apple would have chosen a lower clocked chip for the iPad Pro had there not been a chip shortage. I think the plan was to give it M1 all along. I remember suggesting that in a video and everyone telling me I was wrong, which is why I'm wrong a lot, but I'm getting a similar vibe with the M1X versus M2X thing. Obviously, most people think it'll be M1X, but I have a feeling it won't be. I'm not necessarily saying it's M2X. I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being something else that we didn't predict. Maybe they just call it M2. And then when there's Apple just decides to not have a more efficient chip for the MacBook Airs next year, and they just keep using the M1 because they're like, we haven't hit the overhead. The M1 is still insanely fast for MacBook Air and Mac Mini. Why do we need a new chip? Like, who cares? People are all coming up with different letters, B1, X1. I don't think that's going to simplify things either. Let's see. If M stands for Mac, then the A makes no sense. Or what would that stand for? Yeah, exactly. If M stands for Mac, what the heck is A for? I guess you could say, what does the S stand for on the Apple Watch's chips? At least with M1, iPad Pros got Thunderbolt. I just don't understand how we can't buy extra RAM for $200 on iPad Pros. That is probably more to do with manufacturing simplicity. They would rather just design the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte iPad Pros to come with 16 gigs of RAM. And if they were to start offering, 128 gig M1s with 16 gigs of RAM, that would just result in them having to design way more versions of the chip. There already is a ton of versions. They got to have a 128 gig chip, 256, 512, 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte. And for manufacturing efficiency, they were like, let's just do high RAM on the 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte option, and that's it. We don't need to do it for A for ARM. I guess that could be it, but S stands for System on Chip, A equals Apple Chip. This is all speculation, by the way. No one has actually confirmed. This is why it's named that way. Do you think they will reuse M chips like they do with A chips? For example, put the M1 into an iPad. Wouldn't shock me. Whoa, that was loud. Sorry, it might have been way louder than anticipated. Thank you, Rockford Media, for the super chat again. Everyone I spoke to preferred the Mini when I handed them the 13 Mini and 13 Pro Max. My teacher was very impressed. He has an iPhone 8 and wants more flagship features, so I know 9 people that are getting the Mini now. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, the 13 Pro Max is, like, objectively, like, a very large, like, I would brand that as a phablet. It's a very big phone. So I'm sure if you handed a Mini and a Pro Max to someone, vast majority of circumstances, people would choose the Mini. But I think if you also accounted for handing people the 6.1-inch model, yeah, sorry, I had the audio turned up for that one. I'll turn it down so that if people super chat that much again. But dang, thank you for your generosity, Matt. $20 super chat. Thank you. The moment in the future when it seems Apple is struggling, how some dumb CEO is going to start licensing iOS, Apple Silicon, etc., and burn the whole company. I don't think so. I think they did that in the past when it was mostly computers and it wasn't such a good idea. I wonder if it might be different now. I think Apple knows that licensing out iOS wouldn't really save them that much money. What would be easier is to license out services. So if they wanted to, which they're already doing to a certain extent, right? Like Apple Music is on Android and they're bringing Apple TV apps to all the third-party TVs services. So if one day they wanted to open up iMessage to third parties, they could probably turn that into a service to a certain extent, because then you could start saying, like, all right, in order to use iMessage, here's an idea. I've thrown out the idea in the past that iMessage could be a subscription service. It doesn't even have to cost much. Just be like, okay, you can use iMessage on Android, but it's 99 cents a month. People would be annoyed by that, and it would not overtake WhatsApp because WhatsApp is still free. But for those diehard iMessage fans that want to try out Android, but they're worried that they're going to turn green and break everyone message services, there would probably be a certain number of people willing to pay for iMessage on Android. I'm not saying it would be most people. It would be fairly small, but it would be something. Another way you could do it is if you said, okay, iMessage is on Android now and it's free, but you can only store all of the text message data and images and voice messages you send. All of that can only be on iCloud. So you have to pay for iCloud in order to access iMessage. So technically, the texting part is free, but once you start sending pictures, that starts taking up more data, and that's how they get you. They get roped in through iCloud services and that kind of thing. I don't think they would just go straight to licensing out iOS to third parties, but I also think that the computer market is very different from the smartphone market. So if they did try to license out iOS today, I don't know how many third-party companies would actually try it, but I don't think it would be death for the company right away. Let's see. Apple will most likely never struggle, at least within the next 2 decades. I don't see them struggling when people keep buying iPhones at the rate they are, and Apple's pitching so many subscription services now that clearly some people are getting into. I mean, I'm not as much, but I get a lot of backlash from my own audience, from people that are like, but I love Apple Music and I love Apple TV Plus, and some of you really, really love Apple Arcade. I'm actually, side note, I'm giving Apple Arcade another shot, because I bought my new iPhone and it came with 3 months of Arcade, and I don't really plan on ever paying $5 a month for mobile games, but whenever you do have access to those games for free, I do think it's worth the trial. Like, I would recommend people do the 30 days or the 3 months of Apple Arcade, because they're pretty decent, good games that don't have ads, they don't have in-app purchases. So with that being the case, it's like, yeah, if they offer it for 3 months. I actually really enjoyed playing Asphalt 8 a lot as a kid. When I was in middle school, I played it all the time. And then I found out they did Asphalt 8 Plus that's on Apple Arcade. And my biggest annoyance with Asphalt 8 was always the pop-ups and the ads and the in-app currency and the in-app purchases they were always trying to upsell you on. So when I found out there was a version of Asphalt 8 on Arcade, I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. Granted, I will not spend $5 a month for that. I'm not really much of a gamer. The most amount of gaming you get out of me is an occasional mobile game every 3 or 4 months. I don't play games on my phone regularly. I just once in a while play The Last Campfire. It was really fun. Yeah, I know a lot of people that seem to love Arcade, but I think with all of the iCloud revenue Apple has, I don't see that changing as much as I think. From a consumer perspective, it's very easy for us. You know, I did that live stream about iCloud plans in the past, and I still think they need some work, and they need to be changed. But people in the chat were bringing up some really good points about how with Apple IDs giving 5 gigs for free, we all complain now that, like, hey, that's not enough. File sizes are much bigger now. 5 gigs is pointless. Everyone should get 15 gigs, or some of us will be like, all of us should get 50 gigs for free. That would basically require Apple to buy like 5 to 10 exabytes more of cloud storage for literally no benefit to them. They would have to spend a crap ton of money on exabytes upon exabytes of storage, and all that would happen is we would stop paying for iCloud. People would have less incentive to pay for iCloud, and Apple would collect far less money from services, and they would have to spend more to make that happen. So it would be nice in the same regard that Apple should just give away all iPhones for free. It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, from a consumer perspective, that would be really nice, but it's not practical at all. Apple would lose way too much money, and that business model is not sustainable. It's kind of a similar situation with iCloud storage, but I think my bigger complaint was more about, like, if you want more than 2 terabytes, or in my opinion, similar to Amazon Prime unlimited photos or Flickr Pro, they have options for you to have unlimited photo storage, but limited video storage options. So something like that would make me, like, I would feel far more comfortable spending $10 a month on iCloud, or even more. I would even be comfortable doing $15 or $20 a month on iCloud if I knew the storage was unlimited, at least for pictures, because I know this can be my one library for everything, and this will have all of my life's pictures on it. The issue I have with the current format is that it maxes out at 2 terabytes, and after that, you have to buy other Apple services, which makes no sense to me. Like, why can't there just be a more expensive 4 terabyte storage plan? I don't want to have to buy Apple One Premiere and get Fitness Plus and News Plus and Apple Music and TV Plus. Why do I have to pay for all those just to get 4 terabytes? Why can't I just go straight to 4 terabytes for less than $40 a month? How much is an exabyte? Yeah, I think it's like 1 million terabytes or something. So for those who don't know, the ratios of storage go byte, kilobyte, 1,000 bytes, megabyte, I think that's 1 million bytes, gigabyte, which is 1 billion, and then a terabyte, which is 1 trillion bytes, and then after a terabyte, it's a petabyte. And I believe after a petabyte, it's an exabyte. Correct me if I'm wrong. So 1,000 petabytes. It's an insane amount of storage, basically. There's some website somewhere that has a good indication of, like, how much data an exabyte is. but it's not small. It's not easy to get access to an exabyte of storage, and it's not cheap to pay for a exabyte of cloud storage either. So trillion, quadrillion, and then what is it? Pentillion bytes, something like that. HomeKit Secure Video is technically unlimited for video storage. Yeah, but it's cloud. It's security footage. That's not the footage we're recording from our phones. So the reason I downgraded my iCloud storage plan, and I would love to downgrade it further once we get some more time. We got to sort through my wife's photo library. But I would love to pay for less is because I realized for several years I was paying for 2 terabytes of iCloud storage, and I was coming close to filling that up. I was at like 1.2, 1.5, and as I was getting closer to 2 terabytes, I was like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm paying $10 a month for this, and it's not going to hold everything. Because for a while there, quintillion bytes, thank you. A lot of bytes, dentist nightmare. Yeah. What's up, Ace, Rocks Tech, how are you doing? Basically, I knew that I'm paying $10 a month for this, and I'm going to have to sort through it anyway. Because it's only a matter of time. I'm going to fill up this 2 terabytes, and then I'm going to have to go through all my pictures and videos and delete some and offload others, take some offline for local storage, and delete some that I just feel like I don't want to store anymore. I used Google Photos for a long time because that was unlimited, and I thought it was great, and then Google was like, holy crap, we can't afford this. So that screwed up my plans. Luckily, though, Google does keep all of the stuff that you uploaded before I think it was June 1st of this year. They still host all that for free. So I probably have like 5 to 6 terabytes worth of pictures and videos all on Google Photos that they will hold forever at no charge. So I'm still grateful that they offered that, but it doesn't work towards new things. Hey, Ben, thank you for the super chat. Could a person even fill that up on casual user? No, but you talk about petabytes. I think it's spelt with a E, though, not an I. Petabytes are not the measurement average consumers talk about. When we're talking petabytes, we're talking about storage options that big businesses have to buy. Amazon Web Services talks about things in petabytes and exabytes because they have to buy tons and tons of servers that everybody's storage gets uploaded to, whether you're Apple, Amazon, Google. All of your servers are holding people's cloud stuff. When I'm live streaming right now, it's not like this video just shows up on your phone and then it's never stored again. Google is paying for cloud services. They have to pay for hard drives on big towers that are kept in like vacuum sealed rooms that require power, that require maintenance, that require cleaning, that I am sending all of this video and audio directly to those servers every day for my job, and they pay for all that. So it's not free. And when there's tons and tons of content creators all backing up 4K video, all uploading content constantly and live streaming constantly, and all of this content is stored, that's when you start talking about petabytes of storage. Average consumers, no, they don't talk in petabytes. Hardly ever talk in terabytes. But yeah, main reason I backed off of iCloud was because I was like, either I live with 200 gigs of cloud storage or I live with 2 terabytes. Eventually, I'm going to have to delete some of this stuff. So if I am going to have to sort through all my pictures and videos and spend $3 a month, that's a lot better than me having to sort through pictures and videos and spend $10 a month. iCloud plans, as they are today, is frankly a joke. I wouldn't say they're necessarily... I mean, they should be updated, I agree. But honestly, I've looked at cloud options elsewhere, and they're not much better. Google Photos has some better tiers, but it's not substantially better, honestly. iPad Mini 6 home screen is not bad if you turn on large icons. I think I did turn on large icons, and there's still a lot of padding, but I think it has more to do with the aspect ratio on the iPad Mini just being wider than all the other iPads. Let me use large app. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if there's a good way to do it. I feel like maybe they could be more stretched out to fill up the edges here, but I've not seen much concept art of what that would look like. It's possible that it would still look weird at that point. Let's see. What do you think of the ugly Mini 6 home screen? Is it enough for you to not recommend it? No. The home screen is such a minor... detail. Honestly, I think it's just them trying to match other iPad OS is working across all these different displays. It's working on a 12.9-inch screen and an 8.3-inch screen. So it's kind of hard to scale that across all these different aspect ratios. There's technically 4 different aspect ratios across the iPad lineup. But you know what I was asking earlier today in the Discord? I was like, does anyone have a concept of how this app layout can look better? I can't really find one. Because if you fill up the apps more to the edge, it still looks kind of cluttered. It still looks kind of weird. Like, there's not necessarily a great way to do it. And I think that has more to do with the aspect ratio. But no, by no means is this what we would call a deal breaker. The home screen is just a door to a house. That's really all a home screen is. It's like, here's all the things you can do with this device. Here's how you enter those experiences. You can still stuff the home screen with a ton of apps, but acting like that makes the product unusable, you still use it the same way. You still go to the home screen and tap an app, and it goes to the use case you're looking for. I wouldn't call that a deal breaker. No, that'll probably be changed in future updates as well. From mini to max, do you feel extra weight and form factor? Well, yeah, duh. It's a lot heavier. I just don't mind it. I like big phones. I like little phones. I think the human brain adjusts to the size pretty quickly. Like, you can get comfortable with a mini, you can get comfortable with a max. It's not that hard. Let's see. Do you think by 2030 products will start at 1 terabyte? I don't think. Man, 2030. I guess that's a long time, huh? It may not. The file sizes themselves may be like. It may sound like, okay, now everything ships with 1 terabyte, but the amount of content you store probably won't change very much. I mean, it's possible that maybe pictures and videos in the operating system just get bigger and bigger and bigger and less efficient, but I don't know. Part of me thinks that there's such a big emphasis on smaller file sizes now, of like high efficiency codec with video and pictures, trying to save more space. And at a certain point, you can't just keep improving picture quality or improving dynamic range, because at a certain point it becomes impossible to notice the difference. And when that's the case, it doesn't really, I don't know. That's a good question. I could see it going either way. I could see like efficiency being a big emphasis on content in the future. And I don't think like there are certain tech specs that I don't see linearly improving. Like, I don't think everything will be 8K in the future. Mostly because of smartphones hitting that resolution and then going backwards. Like, smartphone displays got better and better and better, and we hit, 1080p displays and then 4K displays, and the best-selling phones with their pixel density went down. For a while, it was 1080p, like the highest pixel density in the best-selling phone was over 400. Then the iPhone XR and iPhone 11 came out, and those had lower pixel densities, but they sold much better. They sold at very, very high volume because they were new and they looked cooler and they had a better screen-to-body ratio than the iPhone 8 did. So because of that, it sold in high volume, and those were sub 1080p displays. So I don't think the average consumer cares as much about resolution on their devices after a certain point, because the human eye can't tell the difference. So jumping up resolutions like that is not necessarily going to result in better content. It's more so about making the pixels you do have more useful. Now, will storage options be the same way, where like you kind of reach a certain maximum and then it doesn't really need to improve? I'm not sure, because I know that picture quality and video quality improves every year, but I guess when you're doing things like ProRes recording, it starts to make sense to opt for 1 terabyte options and 2 terabyte options, because that takes up a lot of space. But average consumers aren't going to be recording in ProRes. That's kind of a niche thing. So I'm certain it will probably get higher in the future. But at least with Apple, I see the rush to update the base storage line to be less necessary with more recent generation iPads and iPhones. Like, okay, we can do 64 gigs for another year. Okay, maybe we'll do 128 gigs this year. But there's still a lot of people that I know that are comfortably living with 64 gigs and 32. Because like ratio-wise, the size of the content and the size of the operating system relative to consumers' digital footprints, it's not... I don't know if it'll jump to like everyone needs a terabyte by default by 2030. It's possible, but I don't know. I'm not going to say it's likely. What will be the... That's a really interesting question, though. What will be the default storage option in 2030? I wouldn't be shocked. I guess we had 64 gigs since the iPhone 8. So we had 32 gigs with the 7 and 16 and doubled again with 64 gigs. But we kept 64 gigs for like 3 years. Now we're on 128. So with that ratio continuing, assuming we keep our default storage options for 3 years at a time, that would be 128 gig until 2024, maybe 256 gigs from then on, and then 512 by 2027. So I guess if this trend continues, we might be looking at 1 terabyte by default in 2030. It's a long time. I don't think people can comprehend, like, 9 years from now. 9 years ago, we were on iPhone 5, which came with 16 gigs by default, and now we're on 128. So I'm not sure if that storage increase will be exponential or if Apple will hold on to default storage options for more than 3 years moving forward. We will store much more in the cloud and less on device. That's already happening. The storage on our devices will probably still increase, but not as fast in the past years. That's a good point. With the rise of cloud services and internet becoming more and more accessible, now especially with services like Starlink, where you can have adequate internet literally anywhere on the planet. This is all brought to you live via Starlink. It's doing pretty well today, fairly stable. I upload all my content over Starlink, and I do these streams via Starlink. You can literally have access to internet this fast out in the middle of the ocean, in Antarctica. You could be in the middle of Africa with no infrastructure. As long as you have electricity, like basically you could have a solar panel and a Starlink dish and a phone and have 200 megabits down or more, and probably 30 to 40 megabits up. So with the rise of internet becoming more and more accessible to more people, cloud services will probably continue to grow. So maybe default storage options won't be as crucial. I guess it will. Joshua says he's guessing it will plateau at 256 and all storage will be on the cloud and streaming. Okay, fair enough. 256 sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, it might go more than that, but oh hey, Eduardo, thank you for the super chat. He says, "What do you think that? Why do you think that Apple reintroduced the missing ports, bandwidth constraints that didn't allow more than 2 Thunderbolt ports? Reintroduced the missing ports? What are you talking about? I mean, for one, it's not confirmed yet, but it's heavily been rumored that the new MacBook Pros will have missing ports. What are you referring to, though? That didn't allow for more than 2? Reintroduced the missing ports. So, like, they removed ports before, and now they're removing ports again? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I think the M1 chip has a limited number of Thunderbolt controllers, so they can only handle so many ports at once. I think it has something to do with the silicon, obviously, because the M1 Mac Mini removed many of the ports. I don't know why they designed it that way. Maybe it helps them bring the price down to not have those extra controllers, or maybe they were looking at take rates, because I know of certain people that have 4 Thunderbolt ports on their MacBook Pros but are not using all 4 very regularly. So Apple just figured we could save money if we just gave everyone 2 Thunderbolt ports, and from our data, we can tell that most people are only using 2 at a time anyway. MC Rich, thank you for the super chat. To see an iPad mini home screen concept, just Google iPad mini 6 concept and find something from 3 months ago. Okay, I don't know if that's exactly going to find what I'm looking for in terms of home screen layout. Yeah, all I see is concept art from iPadOS 14, but that's a problem with iPadOS, not the iPad mini itself. I guess I can somewhat show this. You're referring to this type of thing where there's like 4 apps? Because this isn't necessarily a good use of space either. I guess you have stuff like this. That's what I miss about iPadOS 14 is you could have the Today view and more apps on the screen at once, which I liked. I'm talking about a concept of how the home screen could be laid out. Yeah, I kind of like the look of that, but look at how tiny the apps are relative to the size of your thumb. So this is obviously just someone taking a screenshot from a full-size iPad and scaling it down to a mini form factor. But I'm talking like current aspect ratio. Now, like that one looks too wide as well. They just basically put a big hand on a full-size iPad Pro. That's essentially what that concept is. Whereas this is a different aspect ratio than the concept art. So that is not a mini iPad. I don't know why they chose that for the thumbnail. But yeah, that's more of an iPad Air. So just scaled down. So yeah, I don't know. I want to see someone take like, oh, Karen just super chatted $5. Thank you. What'd you say? Anytime someplace requires a okay. Karen's doing her meme again, but thank you for the super chat. Let's see. I appreciate all the donations, guys, but I'll remind you once more. To become a member, it's $2 a month, which is a lot cheaper than $5. And your name stands out in the chat. You get updates on videos before they drop. You get the loyalty badges and the emojis. So that's probably going to save you some money. Anyway, I use an iPhone 7 128 gig. I haven't filled even 64 gigs in the past 3 years. My iCloud storage is 5 gigs. Currently only using 1. Also, I don't take many pictures. Well, that's part of the reason. Yeah. There's a lot of people out there that just don't have as large a digital footprint as others. That's always been the case. Why would it be M2X if there's no M2? I think to avoid further confusion, considering that the updated silicon would be based on A15 architecture, and if there's an M2 chip launching next year, if you had an M2 chip and an M1X, consumers are going to be a bit confused about which is faster, because one has a lower number than the other. M2 sounds newer, but if the M2 chip is more focused on efficiency and not so much performance, people will think, oh, M2 must be better, when it's not the case. And it's like, no, M1X is faster, actually. It just results in a bit more. No matter what, they get more confusion. Brain Freak says, hello, said the super chat, but membership doesn't guarantee that a message is read out loud, so a bad deal. The super chat doesn't guarantee that a message is read out loud either. I'm if you read the terms and conditions for super chat on YouTube, I'm within my right to ignore or avoid certain messages, just like Karen is super chatting, and because it's meme Karen stuff, I'm not going to read it because it doesn't pertain to tech and subjects we have, but it does help your message get read and addressed, which I do my best to pay attention to the members' messages, but it's $2 for an entire month versus $5 for once, whereas the members themselves are much easier to read from the chat. I'm actually really interested in how much and how fast AI will improve over the next year and how it will change how we use our devices. I think AI will change a lot, but I don't think it's going to change the way we use our devices that much. Kind of what AI is good for is kind of been maxed out when it comes to smartphone use. I think that the best thing smartphones have going for them in regards to AI would be like portrait mode and cinematic mode, like using machine learning to blur out certain things and enhance, like deep fusion is a lot of neural net training of like bringing more detail out of image from a lower quality sensor. I don't know exactly what people can do with AI to make us use our phones differently, aside from, there's neural net training that goes on with Face ID because it registers and changes your face data the more you use it. The more you unlock your phone with Face ID, the better it gets at detecting you, even when there's differences like a beard or glasses. It kind of learns over time. So there's a lot of, we have neural engines in our Apple Silicon from the last 3 or 4 generations of iPhone have had certain amounts of artificial intelligence going on the inside of them. Let's see. I have a 13 Pro Max that got 256 gigabytes, and I've only used about 60 gigs. Only got 256 for the ProRes video. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would have got 128 gig if it weren't for you need this storage option to shoot at this resolution. But yeah, I bought the 128 gig iPhone 12 mini because I was like, yeah, it's only $50 more. I'm downsizing my iCloud plan. Yeah, I'll get 128. And then only used 30 gigs. It was a waste of money. I should have got 64. I literally, in my 10 months of usage, never used more than 64 gigs at a time. People are saying, does it have to be an M? How about another letter? That's a possibility, but it's very speculative. It's hard to kind of know for sure. I guess this is all speculation to a certain extent. It would be, I guess, somewhat logical for them to come up with something else. N1 or X1 or Z1, or just have a new series of chips for the higher performance. But I also think that can cause confusion considering how many different types of chips there are. M2 sounds great to me. I think M2 is inevitable given we had M1. There will be future generations. It was the first Apple Silicon to go in a Mac, and they gave it 1. So it makes sense that will turn into M2, M3. But the higher-end chips for the more expensive MacBook Pros, not so sure how they're going to handle it. P for performance. I remember making that reference before the M1 chip even came out. I did a video saying, like, maybe they'll do P for something. P1X. Or P for Pro, or P for Power. There's all kinds of ways it can go. Thinking about trading my iPad 5th gen in for the Mini. Any thoughts? I think you'd like it. I love the Mini. I've been using it a lot today. That would be strange to have a jump to M15 from M1. What are you talking about? Now we're just making gun jokes. A15, A15X, and M. Oh, I see what you're saying. Nah, I don't think that saves it. I think less syllables, the better. There you go. Now Karen's asking on-topic questions. Will the M1X MacBook Pros have a cellular option? I haven't heard that, although I feel like they should. If iPads can have cellular, why can't the Macs have cellular? Like, I don't understand. Like, they're both going to be running Apple Silicon now. Like, they have giant batteries, so why not? My freaking mother, a very basic consumer, is barely putting up with 64 gigs. She's looking to buy a newer iPhone with a larger local storage. What do you do on it? How do you fill up the 64 gigs is my question. Because I guess the majority of the use on my phone is watching YouTube, checking email, texting people, banking, checking banking apps, checking data. My job is YouTube, so I use the YouTube app quite a bit. And I take some pictures, and I'll do a longer vlog here and there, but once I edit the vlog and post the vlog, I don't need to store that video on my phone anymore, for the same reason that when I record my tech videos, I record to SD cards or CFast cards, and then when the video's posted, I don't need to store that. I reformat the card. I wipe it clean. Same thing with my phone. I don't need to keep, like, my vlog that is already on YouTube, like, from 3 months ago. I don't need to store that on my phone. So, like, how is your mother exactly filling up the 64 gigs? Lots of middle-aged moms play lots of games on their phones, so they fill up their storage quick. Well, that'll do it, yeah. She's probably taking a lot of videos and pictures without using iCloud. That could be it. Ace Rocks Tech says, if I get the Pixel 6 Pro, will my Apple sheep points severely drop? Been iOS only since 2009. Really curious about Android. Yes, you will lose massive points for me. All of the respect will be gone. You can no longer call yourself a sheep. No, it's fine. I mean, it's fine. Do what you want. It's your money. If you wanna try a Pixel 6, go for it. But yeah, don't call yourself a sheep at that point. What if, thanks to AI, our phones could make accurate predictions as to what we could reply on messages, just to name one thing? It kind of already happens with autocorrect and the predictive text feature. There's only so much you can really do. I don't know how good AI can get at, most of the texts with me and my friends are like meme related or I just thought to myself, oh, we should have so-and-so over for dinner, or we should meet up with so-and-so later. And then I pick up my phone. Is it going to be listening to me? Or is the AI going to perfectly and accurately predict through a certain neural net that I was going to invite my friend over at a certain time? Therefore, it has the text ready to send. I don't know. That I feel like there's so many potential ways our brain could work that if it tried to start guessing those types of things, it would be oftentimes suggesting and bringing up random things like, would you like to invite so-and-so over for pizza? And it was like, no. It was like, what my neural net training told me that was a potential possibility, and it had a slightly higher percentage of all the other possibilities, so I put that text in there for you. It would start, all that type of really, really high advanced predicting would start to get annoying, and you just want to turn it off. So the predictive text thing over your keyboard is probably as good as it's going to get. Photos, WhatsApp, and apps. She is a heavy WhatsApp and iMessage user. WhatsApp takes up a ton of storage. That's why I'm not a big fan of it. I'm glad in the US a lot of people use iMessage because it takes up far less space. Maybe cellular connectivity will be one of the big features of these MacBooks. After all, they're all on 5G now. Maybe it's because they know on Mac you could easily rev up a lot more data consumption. Like, for me, a cellular Mac would be kind of interesting because I could plug in Camlink and high bitrate live streaming software, which uses a ton of data, and I can upload videos off my Mac, which is using, tons and tons of storage, and those video files take up a lot of space, and maybe carriers aren't comfortable with it. That's another consideration we haven't thought about. Maybe it's not up to Apple. A lot of us maybe have been pointing blame at the wrong thing. Maybe we've thought all along that Apple could have added cellular to Macs, but it's possible that the carriers know that MacBooks sell in really high volume and that most people who buy Macs are pretty heavy data users. They're editing videos or pictures, and if they had internet access on their Mac, there would be a crap ton of data that goes on the cellular networks. So they're comfortable with tablets because they feel like they're more mild use devices, and their primary consumption is for texting and FaceTime and YouTube, and that type of bandwidth they're okay with. Even though you can technically rev up a ton of data on an iPad, the carriers logically are still thinking to themselves, yeah, but it's still an iPad. It's just a phone, but bigger. So we'll give cellular to iPads. But if you start asking about a Mac getting it, they're like, no, that's too much. iText says I have about 60 gigabytes of photos and videos. Yeah, I don't have that much. iTech keeps all his photos downloaded on his phone. I'd have to do a lot to get to that point, I think. There's cellular USB sticks that allow MacBooks to connect to cellular. Well, yeah, they sell those things separately, but maybe they would be... I know that they're not that popular relative to if you had a cellular option at checkout. How many people are going to buy the USB stick and connect it to their laptop and use that for cellular? Versus how many people would opt for a cellular option at checkout if it was there. But thank you for the super chat, Karen. We use iMessage mainly, but a lot of her family uses Android, and she doesn't use iCloud Photos. That'll help. I don't use much iCloud Photos. I have iCloud Photos turned off on all of my Apple devices, but we just have a bunch of old stuff on our 200 gig plan. What MagSafe charging device do you use on your bedside? Duo, of course, MagSafe Duo. Don't need cellular on my iPad or MacBook. Just use my iPhone as a personal hotspot, tethering right. I feel like that's the logical thing to do. That's what I would do personally, but a lot of carriers have limits on how much hotspot data you can use, and it also typically chews through your iPhone battery life a lot faster, and your phone heats up a lot when it's on hotspot. So I don't use things on the go when I'm out and about enough to warrant wanting to... For one, Mint Mobile doesn't offer that, but to consider switching to a carrier that offers that is going to cost me more money because Mint Mobile has super duper cheap rates, and I'm very, very happy with the coverage and the service I get on my phone. You can use the hotspot, but carriers have certain limitations on that. Yeah, you can use hotspot for Mac, but the carriers, they have more limits on hotspot data. Very, very rare these days to find a carrier with unlimited hotspot data. They probably don't want too many people getting their Macs on cellular. I'm not sure. Yeah, the hotspot from your phone heats it up, and there's only a certain amount you can use. So I understand why people do it. Like I'm not in the use case where I need a separate cellular plan, but I understand why there are people that do that. Does the cellular non 5G iPads have the Intel modems from the 10s? I don't know. That's a good question. But Wi-Fi speed's been fine on here. No complaints. Oh my goodness, so many pictures being sent to me right now. My family's all catching up with each other, and I'm busy live streaming. I can't talk to you, Mom. I'm answering questions about cellular data on MacBooks. I'm just kidding. Can AirPods 3 come in colors or not? Could they? Yes. Will they? No. I feel like if Apple wanted colors, they would have done it by now. There must be some branding thing. I don't have a good answer, but I have a feeling that it's something about the white stem that just is so iconically AirPods. You know, they don't have an Apple logo to brand themselves with. So they need some kind of recognizability, and maybe Apple thinks that if they started offering black AirPods or red AirPods or different color AirPods, then it would all kind of blend in together with the knockoff headphones and all the spin-off, like the AirPod cheap versions that come in multiple colors. So maybe Apple thinks that if they do AirPods in different colors, they would lose a lot of their recognizability. That's the only argument that is not necessarily a good one, but it sounds like something Apple would do. You know, it's like not something I agree with. Personally, I don't really care. I was like, who cares if they're not iconic? I just want black AirPods. Honestly, that's all I've wanted from the beginning. Ever since they unveiled AirPods, I was like, I want a matte black option because that would look so much cooler. And I don't care if I lose some of my AirPod recognizability. Clearly, it didn't matter for AirPods Max. So if you're willing to spend $500 on your headphones, they'll give you color options. But, yeah, I don't get it. Joshua says, "Is there no join button on the YouTube iOS app?" There isn't, but you can tap the first link in the description. You just have to, if you're wanting to become a YouTube member on iOS, you just got to do it through Safari. Tap first link in the description, and it'll jump you into Safari, and you can sign up. You got the 13 Pro on your birthday. Oh, happy birthday, Dot. You're going to brag about your birthday in the chat, but you choose to be anonymous? It's like, I want some attention, not that much attention. I don't want him to know my name, but it's my birthday. I feel like but happy birthday, whoever you are, whatever your name is. I just want black AirPods. Yeah. Okay. I'm not the only one. Even if we can't get other color options, if we can't get red or blue or green or whatever, just black would be enough for me. That would look so much better. I want more black accessories too. I would love a black Apple Pencil. I would love a black charging cable. There was a black lightning cable that came with my iMac Pro that I still use because I feel like it's the best lightning cable. I wish they made USB-C to Lightning. If iCloud Photos is turned off on all your devices, how and where do you keep your everyday camera photos synced and stored? All my everyday camera photos are on my phone. Most of the time, honestly, my iPad kind of stays in the office. Karen super chatted again. Thank you. He says, "Hey, I'm not falling for that." Also, my HomePod is unplugged at the moment, so that wouldn't work. Nice try. I appreciate the troll, but thanks for the donation. Basically, like if I have everyday pictures that I want to show, I'm going to use the device that's in my pocket. I'm not rarely in a situation where I'm like, oh, I'm away from my phone, but I want to show someone all these pictures and videos I took. It's like, no, I just pull out my phone. There's not a ton of situations where I'm like, I want to show a bunch of people my pictures and videos on a bigger screen. Well, if I do, I can just AirPlay it to the TV. My Roku supports AirPlay, and I can do screen mirroring. I've done that. I've used that feature actually a few times now, where I want to show someone a video or a picture I took. I just go to Control Center and hit AirPlay, and then it shows up on the big screen. There's not really been much use case for me like showing pictures that I took on my iMac or my iPad. I'll either show them on the phone or a TV and call it good. So I haven't needed iCloud Photo. I haven't really missed it that much. There's been a handful of circumstances where I was like, man, I took a picture on my phone and I wish it was just in the iPad already, but not enough for me to want to spend an extra $7 a month. If I lose one of my AirPods, it'd be harder for me to find. Okay, I don't care. Like, I'm not saying get rid of the white AirPods for people who want the white AirPods. That's fine, but just an option. Okay, I'll be more likely to lose them. Whatever. Put them in the Find My network. I think Apple just can't make premium enough plastic in other colors than white. Really? They feel like white is the only color they can make plastic look good in? Hey, it worked. Thank you, Joshua. Let's see if the animation pops up here. Or did it already pop up and I missed it? Did you sell your red Apple Watch? I did, Philip. You can check out yesterday's video if you want more of a backstory on that. Basically, sold my Series 6 to help offset the cost of my Series 7. So in the meantime, I'm stuck using a Series 3. Without iCloud Photos, what happens if your phone breaks? My phone breaks. There's not that much stuff stored on my phone, to be honest. Do you just lose all your photos? I guess. I mean, given there's no unlimited way to store photos that's very affordable, actually there kind of is. Any picture or any, I'm not going to go too in depth on this subject, but pretty much any pictures or any videos that I want to preserve and I want to look back on, I will post. I will share those pictures on social media because that, as far as I can see, is the easiest way to back up content for free. If you're posting it, the site will keep it stored there, and maybe not original quality, but it doesn't cost anything. So when there's things I want to remember, there are things I want to scroll back on and remember fondly, I do have a private Instagram. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's private, so no one can see. Not anybody can see the pictures. Only people I allow to follow me there, and the only people I allow to follow me are those I know in my personal life. People I've met in person. I don't let people I met online follow that account. So if those pictures won't be lost if my phone breaks. Also, my phone has never broke. Don't mean to flex, but I literally can't remember a time I was like, oh, I lost my phone and now everything's gone. It's like, no, if I care enough about the picture, I will post it. There's not a lot of like personal pictures that I don't want to post, but I also never want to lose, even if I lose my phone. I don't know. I can't think of much content in that category. Sebastian says, I finally started getting real 5G in my area. Download an entire season of Rick and Morty in under 2 minutes just because I could and couldn't think of anything practical to do with it. That's hilarious. Yeah, I think of a lot of people are like that. Are like, oh, I have all the 5G speed now. What do I do? Karen says, Flickr is free photo storage, original quality, but it is not unlimited. I know that I messed around with Flickr. They do have photo storage, but you have a certain amount of storage you can back up. Do I regularly back up your phone? To iCloud, yes. It doesn't take up much space, but when profits dip with AirPods, then the colors will come. Maybe if they're desperate, they could start selling some other color options, but I don't think they're going to be desperate. Apple's doing very, very well if you've checked any up-to-date with their balance sheet with how profitable Apple is as a company. Of course, they can make it any color, but the iconic theory is legit. That's a good question. If I could ask Tim Cook or Craig Federighi something. Okay, you have all of these different colors for iMacs. You have all of these different colors for phones, different colors for iPads. Why not AirPods? Why just one color? And they would probably say something, I don't know what. Tell me price dollars to become your friend on Insta. $500 super chat divot. That's what it'll cost. I'll let you'll have to tell me what your Instagram account is, but $500 we'll be friends on Instagram. I can be bought. I only say that because I know it won't happen. Any Apple TV alternative for good AirPlay feature? I'm pretty sure all more recent generation Rokus support it. Of all things, I'm surprised product red AirPods isn't a thing yet. Those would look kind of cool. I could dig that. The glossy AirPods. I'm not in love with my Roku. You know, I still prefer the Apple TV. It was just I hate the Apple TV box. Like the box itself is way too expensive, and I don't like having another light and another little station on my desk. You know, on the not the desk, but the TV stand. We have our 55-inch 4K with a Roku built into it. It's not a stick. It's not a dock or anything. It's just the native TV OS. When you first turn on the TV, it's already in the Roku. That supports the AirPlay features and the screen mirroring features. I can even AirPlay to the TV from my iMac if I want to. I've done that a few times. But come on, Starlink, you got this. If I get an Apple TV, I have to get a little box with the A12 chip and everything, which costs way too much. I like the remote, but I'm not willing to spend $180 on that remote because my current Roku is fine. You know, the Roku remote is a little plasticky and basic, but it gets the job done. I honestly don't use that TV enough for me to justify spending another $200 on it just for the remote to be slightly better and for tvOS. It's nice, but that's why I got so angry when Apple got rid of there was reports that Apple dropped the whole streaming stick plan because they thought the streaming stick would be too cheap and impede on Apple's reputation as a luxury hardware developer. It's like, oh, get that crap out of here. Come on. You make the budget iPad. You'll be okay. You can make a premium streaming stick. If you can make a $300 iPad and you're worried about luxury perception, you could make a premium little streaming stick. They need that, just like the HomePod didn't do well until they did the HomePod Mini. I feel like the Apple TV would do far better if they had an Apple TV stick or something. Basically, get an Apple TV that's under $100. That's what they need. Do you think Apple should have the MagSafe puck with a lightning insert instead of a sealed unique cable that is not replaceable when damaged? I haven't done a teardown, but I've seen that concept. It's kind of stuck behind the... Okay, I have the MagSafe puck here. I've seen that concept of people just saying, what if there was a lightning port here? My theory, I could be totally wrong on this because I don't do teardowns and I haven't seen what's inside a MagSafe puck, but my theory is with its current design, you can't put a lightning port in here because of the size of the coils and the electronics that a lightning connector needs. There's some internal pins and stuff that you have to put on any lightning device. And for one, this is very thin. The MagSafe puck is already incredibly thin. And on top of that, I'm pretty sure that it's pretty densely packed with electronics and coils that, you know, provide the magnetic current to charge the device. So I don't think it's that simple to just say, well, just put a lightning connector there. It might be. I don't know. That's just my theory. But yes, I agree. If that was technically possible, that would be a great idea. Because then you could basically sell a little puck and just slap it on any lightning charger. Granted, if it's a 5-watt lightning charger, it's not going to work very well because this needs more than 5 watts. And there's always some energy lost in the wireless transition. So wouldn't work on any lightning charger. But yes, it would be nice if we could just plug a lightning cable in there. That's my theory. I don't know if that's backed up by any evidence, but I would kill for a HomePod with a screen and tvOS for great sound and pictures. Yeah, there was some talk about Apple doing that. Anyway, let's see. Karen's the super chat queen today. She said, I wish Apple would bring back the 12-inch MacBook, but put an M1/M2 in it. Also an extra USB-C port on the right instead of a headphone jack. That would be very nice. My theory is that Apple would rather just keep updating the MacBook Air, and they'll just keep the screen size of 13 inches the same on the MacBook Air, but thin down on the bezels and get it into a smaller form factor so that the size of the laptop will be fairly close to the size of the 12-inch MacBook, but just with thinner bezels, larger display. And yeah, obviously, Apple Silicon would do great in a 12-inch MacBook form factor. Randy B says, Apple Sheep now ordered MagSafe Duo expecting I would send back soon after getting. As soon as I dropped phone watch on it, then saw the animation, I was like, I must have this, plus portability. Yeah, there's lots of cheaper ways to get a 2-in-1 charger. I understand that. There's Belkin and Anker and whoever, you know, there's tons of chargers out there that let you just charge your phone and watch, but none of them, from what I can find, tag me on Twitter if you find one, none of them are as small and as portable as MagSafe Duo. MagSafe Duo is so dang thin. You can fold it up and just slide it in your pocket. Takes up so little space. Whenever we're packing and we need to be in a hurry to go on a road trip or something, or I'm going somewhere to travel, I just fold up MagSafe Duo and slide it in my pocket. So easy. There's tons of 2-in-1 chargers, though, that are cheaper. I get that. Do you think Apple would ever ditch the 11-inch iPad Pro in favor of the Air? I don't think it really makes much sense, as the iPad Pro 11-inch seems a bit more popular than the 12.9-inch. Yeah, I think that the 11-inch sells in way too high volume for them to scrap it entirely. I think that Apple has discovered that the 11-inch iPad is like the most popular form factor. Obviously, I love the iPad mini form factor, and this is a great product in its own, and I'm also a big fan of the 12.9-inch form factor, but I think the vast majority of consumers are going to go right in the middle with the 11-inch. So because of that, it makes sense to have the Air, which is like the scaled down, more affordable version of an iPad with an 11-inch display, and then you have the Pro, which has more luxury features. It sounds like the next 11-inch iPad Pro will get mini LED. It's got Face ID. It's got 120 hertz. So I get why there's a little bit of product overlap with two iPads having the same screen size, one being more expensive and one being cheaper. Kind of makes sense. It's the same thing with iPhones when you think about it. We've got a iPhone 13 and 13 Pro because Apple discovered 6.1-inch is the most popular form factor. So they have a premium option of that size and a cheaper option of that size. Why am I talking about that bad? I know. I'm vaccinated, so I'm good. But thank you for the super chat. I just want a MacBook with an edge-to-edge keyboard. That's right. The 12-inch MacBook did. That the keys went right to the edge. It's also possible that maybe the Magic Keyboard doesn't work well with the 12-inch form factor. You know, the Apple tried to get the butterfly keyboard working for years and years and years, and I think they just barely figured it out. But he's tagging me on Twitter. Who's tagging me on Twitter? The Trio one I sent Drew on Twitter is really good quality for 49 pounds and does 3 devices. Oh, I know what you're talking about. MagSafe Trio. Yeah, I think that you said 49 pounds and my American brain was like, why is it so heavy? But yeah, I know that there's a knockoff version of MagSafe Duo. I don't know if I can buy that where I live, but I guarantee you it's not as portable or as lightweight as MagSafe Duo still. It can charge an additional device, but still. I don't know how to pronounce this, man. Vitatus? Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Appreciate that. Thank you. The Belkin $150 MagSafe boost stand is not at all portable, but is much better bedside for portability. Sure, MagSafe Duo. Yeah, if you're going, I feel like it's unbeatable. I know, but you're also watching me through a screen care. Okay, I'm just, if you're just gonna troll, I'm not gonna read the messages, but I'll thank you for the super chats. The Belkin $150 MagSafe boost stand is. Oh, sorry, I just read that. My bad. Blizzard on a chair says, I love the iPad Air. I love the Air/SE Life MacBook Air, iPad Air. The iPad Pro makes no sense to me with that hardware. I guess if you don't care about 120 hertz or you don't care about Face ID. Oh, you just said call me Vito. Okay, I'll call you Vito. It's science, not politics. I know, but if you're gonna troll and say, why am I not talking to you with a mask as we're streaming online? I'm going to troll back and say I'm vaccinated, so it's okay. That's also a joke. I know that you could spread it vaccinated, so don't do a troll message and then a serious message and go back and forth. Otherwise, I'm just gonna ignore the messages. Having a MagSafe charging stand on my bedside is clutch. Yeah, I get it, but the reason I like the Duo is because it does both. It makes a great nightstand, but it also makes a great travel companion. So it covers everything. So to me, worth the price. However, MagSafe Duo absolutely would be much, much better if it had USB-C, because then it would charge my iPad and my iPhone and watch. That is clutch indeed. Dylan says, why bring back 12-inch? Yeah, I think people just I really like that form factor as well. I remember reviewing the 12-inch MacBook. The only issue with it was the performance was trash. It was basically Apple's version of a Chromebook, except by Apple, I mean like it's built with high quality parts. It's really thin and lightweight, and it feels very premium. But it was really only good for like Safari, iMessage, Notes, FaceTime. It was really just good for the basic stuff. The 12-inch MacBook was really terrible for any type of performance task. Like, you weren't going to be able to do much video editing on it. I know, because I did. You can do it. It just takes forever. There was no fans, very slow export times, very sluggish when it came to any type of performance task. So the reason they probably got rid of it was because it wasn't selling all that well. It does not make a great nightstand, though. It lifts up when you snatch your phone. Really? Mine doesn't. I feel like you're holding it wrong, essentially. There's a special way to use MagSafe. It doesn't come with me when I pick my phone up. You just have to pinch it a certain way. I'll show you. I have a 12 mini here. Whenever you pick it up, you can just detach the puck with your fingers, which is typically what I end up doing. So, man, I wish I could show my desk. Can this go down far enough? Basically, like, the puck is here. My phone is charging on MagSafe Duo, right? And when I'm done, I can just slide it off like that. It's a one-handed motion. It doesn't typically come with me. So there's just a little push on my middle finger, I guess, to just pop it off. The side strength is a lot less strong than the up and down strength. So I don't have to do much, like hold the stand and pull the phone simultaneously. I feel like my MagSafe charging ruins my battery from all the heat it generates in my phone. I don't think it makes that big a difference, to be honest with you. I did only wireless charging on my XS Max for a year, and after a year of use, the battery health was at 97%. I think there is a lot of excess heat when you do inductive charging, but I don't think it's internal. I think it's more external heat. So the outside of your phone is getting hot. The charge puck itself gets hot, but I don't think it's necessarily the battery that's getting hot. But I'm sure, charging faster or charging wirelessly might hurt your battery slightly faster than just always charging it with the slow 5-watt. But overall, I don't think it makes that big a difference in the long run. Just make sure you've got optimized battery charging turned on, and you should be fine. Like, whether or not your battery health is 90% after a year or 95, you're going to use the phone mostly the same way. Doesn't result in that big a difference. If your battery life is just so, and you're getting through the day, ending the day with your smartphone at 0% every single time, then okay, I can understand why you'd be upset at the battery health getting worse, but ideally you wouldn't be in that case. You should be ending your phone, you should be ending the day probably more so with 20% or better battery life. And if you are, then when your battery health is down 5% or 10%, it'll still get you through the day anyway. Do you have AirPods Pro? If so, how's it treating you? Planning to get those with my first wireless headphones. I love AirPods Pro. Yeah, I still use them. I use mostly AirPods 2, though. I just feel like they fit my ear a little bit better. But, yeah, MagSafe Pro. Sorry, what did I say? MagSafe Pro. AirPods Pro have been pretty good. A lot of software issues, and I had to get a replacement case and a replacement left bud. But after that, yeah, they've been pretty good. My right one wasn't charging today for some reason, but I just kind of... If you're ever having issues where your pods aren't charging, I recommend a Q-tip. Just clean the inside of the case, because debris will get in there in the stems, and the pins won't be able to line up just right. So if you clean out your AirPods case, you should be able to charge them again. That's the little pro tip that worked for me. Is the 12 Pro Gold the same as the 13 Pro Gold? I didn't compare them in the store, obviously, because they don't have both. Let me see if the website treats them differently. I'm not sure if they do. Usually you can tell a little bit of a color difference here. Gold, 12 Pro. Pretty dang close. If anything, the 13 Pro Gold looks slightly darker. Usually they like just barely change them every year. It's never like the exact same gold, but yeah, it does look a little, it's like a shade darker on the 13 this year. Very slight, but just a little bit Just a little bit darker. What else did they change? 12 white versus starlight. Yeah, it feels a little yellowish on the 13. Huh. I don't know. Not a fan of that. I like colors to be solid and easy to identify personally, but Apple's got the best marketing team. They know what they're doing. Would you recommend to get the AirPods 2 instead of Pros then? Right now, I would say wait if you can, because we're probably getting AirPods 3. If you're in the market for active noise cancellation and you want, something that's going to be good for canceling out background audio, we're probably not going to get new AirPods Pro for quite some time, so you're probably safe buying AirPods Pro now. But if you don't care about active noise cancellation and you just want some good headphones, then I would wait, because it certainly sounds like AirPods 3 is just about ready. It's like been in mass production for a while. It could even launch as soon as like this Tuesday. It might be a site refresh that Apple just drops in between events. I don't know why they don't want to announce AirPods during an event, but they haven't for years. They did AirPods Pro via site refresh, AirPods 2 site refresh, AirPods Max. They were all site refreshes. So I don't know why they don't want to do it during an event, but I feel like every month we don't get AirPods 3, it becomes more likely that we're about to get AirPods 3 again. Noah says he has AirPods Pro. They're not for everyone, but I would say get them and try them out. You'll get used to them and love them. Also, the original ones, people can hear what you are listening to. That's also very true. It's something I realized because I used to use AirPods Pro all the time, and my wife likes to take naps a lot because she works a lot of overtime and gets tired and has to get up really early and sometimes work late. So oftentimes we'll be hanging out and she'll just be like, I'm going to take a nap. And I prefer, bizarrely enough, I preferred the sound quality of AirPods 2, which most people say sounds cheaper and AirPods Pro sound better, but I don't know. I grew up with that AirPods style design. And, thanks, Lee, for the super chat. I switched to AirPods 2 recently because they felt more comfortable in my ear, and I preferred the heavier bass, and I liked the sound quality. But then I started doing that, and when my wife would be napping, she was like, I can hear your headphones. Like, can you turn that down? And I'm not even cranking it. Like, my volume on my AirPods 2 was not at 100%. It was at like 60 or 75, and she was like, I can hear the audio. I can hear that, I can hear what you're listening to. And I was like, sorry, so I had to turn it down. I never had that issue with AirPods Pro, so the sound doesn't escape the ear as much. Who needs Norton when you can just put them... Hilarious, Karen. Okay, if I use a MagSafe charger, will that save my battery? I had my 12 Pro for 11 months and hit 90% battery health using 90% wired and 10% Qi charging. This is why I think Apple didn't want to put battery health data in the phone. I think people make it out to be a bigger deal than it is. There are so many factors that go into your battery health, and it's not all about charging habits. It has a lot to do with temperatures. It has a lot to do with cycles. How often you let your phone get to 0%, how often you leave it at 100%. There's so many variables that it's just going to be possible. Like, it's going to go down. The battery health will always drop. There's no way around that. And it's only a matter of how many cycles it goes through, how often the battery gets below a certain point, how often it stays above 100%. All I would say, Lee, is just use your phone to your best convenience. Like, if you charged it a very specific way and you charged it just with 5% and you never let it go below 20%, if you just charged it with 5 watts via Lightning, no wireless charging, you would still probably be at 92%, 93% battery health. It's not going to be like night and day giant differences between charging habits. So I would just say use it to your most convenience. Like, it's going to go down. It's unavoidable. Let's see. Did you say that AirPods 2 have a more heavy bass? I've heard that Pro sound way better than regular AirPods. Ain't that the case? Yes, but most people saying AirPods Pro sound better are saying it's a more well-rounded. The bigger complaint about audio quality with AirPods 2 is that they emphasize the fact that they're open back, right? Like when you have regular AirPods in and you pause the music, you can hear everything. It's like you're not even wearing headphones. I like that feature personally because it's like a built-in transparency mode at all times. If I pause the music, I can hear everything. I don't have to fuss between noise cancellation and transparency mode. But in order to combat that, those open back design, it lets a lot of external audio in. So what AirPods 2 do is they kind of overemphasize the bass, and they probably have more bass than what an audiophile is comfortable with. That way it cancels out the background audio. So basically when you turn up the music on regular AirPods, you can't hear much of what's going on around you because the bass is extra heavy. Whereas AirPods Pro gets to isolate that audio. It has more frequencies. It can hit lower lows of bass, and it can hit higher highs, and you can kind of hear the mids better because it's more well-balanced audio experience. But I notice that the bass feels heavier on the AirPods too, which I kind of prefer. So I've heard people go both ways, actually. I know Sam from iUpdate was saying, you know, he tried AirPods Pro for a while and he still ended up preferring the AirPods 2 sound quality. So it's subjective. You know, some people prefer higher bass. Some people prefer more balanced audio overall. But a new tech video has just dropped, ladies and gentlemen, so feel free to check that out. I'm going to get going here, but thank you all for tuning in. Hope you all have an excellent rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.